Hi everyone, today I'm going to be sharing with you the techniques that I use to cover my under eye circles to make sure that none of the concealer creases or goes cakey throughout the day. My under eyes are going to look the same at the end of the day as they do on first application. I'm also going to be sharing with you a couple of tips on how you can cover over and disguise under eye hollows. The hollows are still going to be there, but your under eyes are going to look a little bit more fuller and that hollow less severe. Now, there are lots of things that can attribute to under eye circles. Mine are hereditary. Everyone in my family, or at least my dad's side of the family, has quite dark under eye circles, and I've had mine ever since I can pretty much remember. But also things like poor sleep. I know mine get worse if I haven't had a good night's sleep, like last night. Really didn't sleep well, under eye circles much darker today. Also, poor lifestyle, poor diet, all these things can attribute to how dark your under eye circles are, or even if you have under eye circles at all. But there are actually two types of under eye circles. Under eye circles where the pigment shows from underneath the skin and shines through, that bluey or purpley tint, but there's also surface pigmentation under eye circles. This is more browny and it's caused from sun damage, and you need to know which one of the two you have because you can treat these in a couple of different ways. To find out which type of under eye circle you have, and I'm really sorry to say it's totally possible that you might have both, all you need to do is place a couple of fingers underneath the eye and very gently move the skin from side to side. Usually this is the last thing that I would recommend that anybody do, but you only have to do this once and once alone, so as long as you're gentle, no harm is going to come to your skin. So just move the skin in different directions. If the pigmentation moves in the same direction that you're moving the skin, it's more than likely to be surface pigmentation, and this can actually be treated and made a lot better with the use of vitamin C eye creams, retinol eye creams, and niacinamide. My mum is the prime example of this. She had a lot of surface pigmentation caused from sun damage, and it's practically non-existent now. It's absolutely amazing, the transformation that my mum's under eyes have gone through. My mum does still have under the surface pigmentation though that she has to cover over with makeup, and that's what we're going to be concentrating on in this video today. So I'm only going to do one side of my face so we can keep comparing and contrasting as we go along. As you will see, when I tilt my head down, I do have under eye hollows. I do have quite deep set eyes, so I've always had under eye hollows, but they are getting worse as I'm getting older and the fullness underneath my eyes is starting to deplete. So, first step, under eye corrector. Really important that you try and neutralize the pigmentation before you apply any sort of concealer. The corrector I'm going to be using today is my favourite one. It's from Huda Beauty and it's the Faux Filter Corrector in the shade Peach. I'm using the BK Beauty 207 brush. It's a really small, compact brush which allows you to be incredibly precise, just dipping into the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Corrector and then knocking off the excess on the back of my hand. And I'm only going to place it in the areas of darkness. As well as that obvious darkness that I have underneath the eye in that trough area, I also have quite a bit of darkness on the inner corner, so I always like to make sure that that's covered with colour corrector. A little bit of darkness on the outer corner of my eye. Again, I like to make sure that that is covered. And I do have quite a prominent vein that runs from the outer corner all the way down to the trough in a little bit of a diagonal line. So I like to make sure that any bluey tinge that's poking through from that vein is neutralized with the peachy tone color corrector. So as you'll see, I have been extremely precise. There is no peachy color corrector anywhere other than those areas that I had that darkness. And the peach tone has done a really good job already of neutralizing the bluey undertones of any pigmentation that's poking through underneath my eyes. Next up, I'm going to apply a little bit of concealer. I like to apply my concealer after foundation, so I already have all of my foundation on my skin. Some people like to apply it before foundation. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I'm sure a makeup artist somewhere will disagree with me, but I just think you, do what's right for you on the day that you're actually doing the application. So you may have a problem if you pick a concealer that is too fair for your skin tone. I know a lot of people like a bright under eye, but if you go too bright, you're not going to be covering anything over. You're just going to make it lighter and it's going to have a bit of a grey hue underneath the eyes, which I don't think is flattering at all. Secondly, I think if you go too bright under the eyes, you just look permanently scared or startled in some way. So I like to keep mine as natural as possible, add a tiny bit of brightness, but not too much. I'm using the Natasha Denona High Glam Concealer in the shade N2. You use whatever concealer you have to hand that works for your under eyes. You do not need to use the same one as me. This does have serious coverage though, and serious coverage I definitely need. So first off, I'm warming the concealer on the back of my hand with my finger, but I'm not going in with my finger just yet. I'm going to take the same brush that I've just used to lay down the color corrector. I have wiped it off on a tissue, pop a little bit on the end of my brush, and then pop that over the areas that I want to conceal. I'm hardly using any concealer whatsoever. I'm just tapping the concealer in place where I need it. If the area does not need concealing, I stay away from it. You don't need product underneath your eye if it's not actually achieving anything. So just staying away from the area right underneath my lash line, because that's where I have quite a lot of fine lines and wrinkles anyway. So you don't want anything sitting in those fine lines and wrinkles throughout the day if it's unnecessary. And then as soon as the product has been laid down, I'm just going to take my finger and just push that into the skin, just to make sure it's not just sat on the surface, it's melted with the heat of my finger into the skin. Now for the amount of products that I've applied underneath my eye, I think I've got really decent coverage, and I'm not gonna lie, usually on an everyday scenario, this would probably work for me. I'd skip step 3 and I'd move straight on to step 4 and get on with my day. However, if I do lower my head a little bit, you can still see a little bit of that bluey purpley discoloration poking through, which is actually exacerbated by my under eye hollow. And it's that hollow that I want to disguise whilst also giving a little bit more coverage to cover over that bluey purpley tone. So if you are wanting to make your under eyes look a little fuller, if you have under eye hollows that you're wanting to disguise, you're going to need a second concealer. The second concealer needs to be in a lighter shade than the first concealer. How this works is the same principles as highlight and contour. If you contour an area, if you add something that's slightly deeper and cooler toned to areas of your skin, you're going to make it look more recessed, more pushed into the skin. If you highlight the skin either with a lighter shade or more of a radiant shade, you're going to make it seem more pushed forward, more prominent. I've been doing this tip for a really long time. When I want my under eyes to look super flawless, I just took a little bit of the light concealer and patted it with my fingertip underneath my eye, right on that trough area, right in that hollow, just to bring that forward. But then I saw my friend Stephanie Marie do a slightly different technique on her under eyes in a video she did not so long ago, and I will link that video in the description box, because if you haven't seen that, honestly, definitely worth a watch. Stephanie used a really precise, very small brush and was uber precise with her application of the lighter concealer, and I tried it after watching that video. It works so much better than the way that I was doing it. So credit where credit is due. This is Stephanie's tip, not mine. I am going to take a really small brush. So this is the BK Beauty Angie Hot and Flashy A505 brush. So it's quite flat, but it also has a really nice, precise, thin point. I'm going to dip into the really fair concealer, lower my head, and I am just placing this concealer where the areas of darkness are and in that hollow, because I want to push the hollow forward, giving the impression of a fuller, more youthful under eye. Not only am I going to go there though, I'm also going to add a little bit to this crevice that I have on the inner corner. So obviously that looks a little bit severe at the moment. I am going to feather it out. It will look beautiful once it's finished. Trust the process. One major tip for you though, do not go any lower than that tear trough, than that hollow. If you do go lower, if you blend product lower down on the cheek, you're going to lose the benefits of placing a lighter concealer in that trough area, because not only is it going to project the area of hollowness, it's also going to project the area below it, so you're not going to get the benefits. So once the product is laid down in the hollow, then going to take my finger and just blend that out a little bit, just on that top edge and in that inner corner. And I'm using very little pressure, hardly any at all. I don't want to move the product, I just want to push it into the skin and blend out the edges. Once I've applied the rest of my makeup, you won't notice the difference in these two concealer shades. The brightness underneath this eye not only disguises the under eye circles, but also creates the illusion of a fuller under eye. I mean, how much fuller does this eye look to this one? This one is sunken, lots of bluey, purpley tones, very discolored. This one, projected forward, looks so much fuller and no under eye circles. So there is still a little bit of pigmentation underneath my eyes when I lower my head. I don't mind that so much. It's so much better than it was before. I don't think I can improve on that. If I added more product, it's just going to look unnatural, and nobody has perfect skin. Have you ever seen anybody with completely flawless perfect skin when they have no makeup on? I have not. I mean, I'm sure I have, but they're probably around about 6 months old. Step 4 for me is all about making sure that all the products that you've just applied are set in place and do not move throughout the day. So I'm going to use a loose powder. Mine is from Givenchy. It's the Prism Libra loose powder. You can use whichever powder you have to hand. This is just so super finely milled. It is my favorite powder of the moment for underneath my eyes. I love the shades of them as well. Mine is in the shade 3, so it's got some pinky tones. It's also got some peachy tones as well. So if you do have any under eye circle left underneath your eye, this will help to add the smidgest bit of extra coverage, and it's also really brightening as well. Going to get a little bit of the powder on the end of my Trigwell Cosmetics powder puff, and then remove any excess on the back of my hand. You don't want to be applying too much powder underneath the eyes. Then I'm going to create a funny face, make sure that my under eye is slightly stretched with a... I'm not showing you that again. And then I'm just going to go underneath the eye where I've placed that lighter shade. I'm not going anywhere higher. And with the last bits of excess that are on the powder puff, I'm going to go all the way underneath the eye just to set everything in place. But initially, just that trough area. And then once that's done, if you do have a powdery residue or you want to add more longevity to your under eye makeup, A setting spray is key. So I'm going to take the BK Beauty A506 brush, which is a lovely kitten paw type brush. And I'm just going to spray a little bit of the e.l.f. Power Grip Dewy Setting Spray over the top of that. Just a very small amount. Pat it on the surface of the back of my hand to begin with, because I don't want too much product. And then just dab that where I need it. So that's it with a full face of makeup. My under eye circles are concealed, my under eyes look brighter, my hollows are practically non-existent. They are definitely still there, by the way. We can't magically make them disappear, but this just gives the illusion that my under eyes are fuller, plumper, more youthful, and I am all for that. So once again, thank you to Stephanie Marie for giving me a point in the right direction. I was on the right track, but I just needed to hone in on that brightening concealer and be just a little bit more precise to get a better result. I have linked Stephanie's video in the description box. Definitely check that out. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you haven't tried any of these tips already, try them out at home. Let me know how you get on in the comments section. Please don't forget to like and subscribe before you leave. I've left another couple of videos over here that I think you may enjoy if you've enjoyed this one. Hope to see you all in the next one. Bye everyone.